back with another episode of Rest is Noise. And I guess as long as Trump is gonna stay in the office, we'll keep talking about him. So I think for past, I think since the day he came to office, we have been hearing about, as what we heard during his campaign trail as well, about the immigration and how he wants to control it, how he wants to take the birthright citizenship, um, a lot of these things. And I think a lot of people who do disagrees with anything uh, which concerns their policy as Republicans or just his himself. People have been there's a crackdown on those people. Um, we have seen freedom of speech being taken away. Like we have talked about Mama Khalil case last week a little bit, and now we are seeing El Salvador president in there, while a bunch of like people has been flew back to Venezuela, like call them as like Venezuelan gang members. There's this person named Gracia. He has been sent back to El Salvador in their prisons. They labeled him as a gang member, while they all admitted that it was an error. The court made an order, but somehow I feel like what part is confusing me is that there's this whole conversation going around with saying कि um, administrative error था, he's not a gang member. कोर्ट ने ऑर्डर भी कर दिया उसे वापस ले आए, but somehow Trump administration and the government is over and over trying to make it sound like it was the right decision. I just saw the tweet from him showing his knuckle tattoo. So what's up? But how are you feeling about this?
So, I mean, given that they have admitted that it is an administrative error, it is now like the bar is now so low of any due diligence that anyone having tattoo is being linked with
Yeah.
random gangs, and then the authorities are acting upon it. Um, so the like why everyone is talking about it, because like we have seen this kind of disappearances the in our part of the world. We have
Yeah.
seen cases like that, and then we associate these things with authoritarian regimes like
Yes.
Putin would do. We might see a situation in the kingdom or China. So here people are basically drawing a link between how Donald Trump has increasingly becoming more and more authoritarian. Like
Hmm.
everyone knew that he kind of was, but we have been seeing the limits of that being pushed over and over. And the big thing was when the El Salvador president traveled to the US, the the kind of vulgar display of how they are just not gonna do anything about it,
Yeah.
and pretending that they have no power over it. Like they
Yeah.
have, like at this point it appears like El Salvador is probably the strongest country in the world, where
Yeah.
you can twist anybody's arm. You can go after China, you can go after Canada, but when it comes to El Salvador, having a person um, sent back to your country, it's all of a sudden is like a big deal. So clearly, when questions were asked in that interaction, the way everyone from their Secretary of State to Trump himself to I don't know who I forgot the name of the guy, Stephen Miller.
Hmm.
So they all actually went after the journalist
Yeah.
in that exchange. So all in all, there is like clearly no intent in them backing down.
Hmm.
So right now we are seeing this kind of a standoff between the Supreme Court and the administration. Um, and I think there was some deadline by which they were supposed to act. But we'll see how it pans out. But uh, like it is distressing, like the whole story itself, and the way government has basically, they like hard Charlie, and they are like basically openly admitting that we're not going to do anything about it, despite us admitting that there were some mistakes, and the person was never tried in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the more you read about it, the more um, like blatant lawlessness you see
Mm-hmm.
in the whole story. So yeah, it has been that's why it has been in the news everywhere.
So, okay, I understand that there is lack of willingness to fix this mistake. Uh, what I'm trying to understand here is कि आपसे गलती हो गई है, आपने बोल भी दिया कि आपसे गलती हो गई है, बट आप somehow उस गलती को नहीं भी मान रहे, because uh, जैसे अब I was talking about Donald Trump's tweet, which where he's saying कि oh, look at his knuckles, like the picture of his knuckles, he's MS-13 like gang member, while they said it was a mistake. Then the same thing is happening. Like I think yesterday, the press secretary pulled like this random woman who had this random case where her daughter was killed by somebody who came from El Salvador, and saying, "Ki, gee, see, this is how it happens." But this guy didn't do it, right? So is it like, are they trying to distract? The same thing is like, you are saying all of these things, and there was this speculation that he might have died in the custody and everything, and then a Democrat senator met him. He posted a picture, and El Salvador's president reposted it, mocking the senator,
Yeah,
saying that, oh, look at this, he finally come from, like, he's rose from death. I mean, to me it's like, I don't know, a very intense form of gaslighting, where you're saying you did something wrong, but you're continuously not saying what you did wrong. And that's also the thing that they are doing with Supreme Court, right? They're doing with courts. The judge orders something, they go and do opposite of it, and then they say, oh, you didn't write it. So and their whole thing is, oh, we're going to win it in Supreme Court. When it goes to Supreme Court and the Supreme Court says the same thing, they are like, oh, but it's our interpretation of what you said, because you didn't say exactly this thing, because court
yeah,
said that you have to bring him and he has to be tried here, instead of you like deporting him, and if he is wrong we can deport him later. And they're like, oh, so why do we have to deport him twice?
yeah.
So yeah.
Also the I think like, so there are like multiple things that are upsetting in whole of that, where that this woman, I forgot her name, who visited that prison in El Salvador, and
Oh yeah, I saw
they
I saw the videos of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they published those videos on TikTok where they're standing in front of that prison
Yeah.
and openly saying that
We
this
will
is
send
where
you here.
yeah, this is where you're gonna end. And that prison is like notorious, and the president of El Salvador himself, like for the last like 4 or 5 years, he has been he has that uh dictatorial nature.
Mm-hmm.
And for years he has been projected as like a revolutionary
Mm-hmm.
across social medias to the population in the West. Like there is a huge mega base who just loves the way he operates. And so they started this prison where basically you only go in, and
Your
you
cup
come
and
out
comes
in a
out.
box, right? So that is a lot of the people miss this thing, and they have been referring to the the drop in the crime rate in El Salvador
Mm-hmm.
since they started operating that way. But in all of that, what you miss is, And there are multiple examples coming out of El Salvador itself, that there have been people who have been put in that prison mistakenly,
Yeah.
where no due process was followed. So if you operate in that way, and let's say there is a even if a small percentage, like 1%, 2% of innocence going through that, if at the end of that you achieve like some percentage of drop in the crime rate, is it worth achieving?
Uh,
So at this point, what I'm seeing is like on the social media, if you go, everyone is quoting that, oh, look at El Salvador, they adopted this policy like this many years ago, and since then we are seeing this drop in the rate of crime, um, which seems very appealing. But when you are looking so closely at the picture, you miss like these human stories where someone's life is like totally being destroyed. Um, so yeah, I think especially the people that are consuming these stories coming out of El Salvador, and um, basically projecting that we should have these kind of systems, should actually give it like a good second look, and try to understand the suffering for a lot of the innocent, like even if there were no innocents in there, like treating people or prisoners in such a way, and then openly displaying that on social media videos, I think it's just like um it's stupid and vulgar, to say the least.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I just want to add it here that today I was watching this documentary about Brunei. And the Brunei has a almost no crime rate. They are like attributed to the Sharia laws they have implemented.
Hmm.
Um, and this guy's going around, he's doing a coverage, and he's talking to the people, and he's having these conversations and everything. And if you watch that documentary, uh, it says over and over that nobody has been executed
Hmm.
since the Sharia laws have been uh, implemented. Um, they're talking to people. It's the safest country on earth, but people don't seem to be happy. The only thing they can do is shop once in a while. The culture is extremely patriarchal. Every weekend, people cross borders to go into Malaysia to actually live a life
Hmm.
for 2 days. The large just number, there are a lot of people who have left there. um, I think when we see the, like, when we try to correlate and directly employ these logics that, oh, there the crime rate is really low, or something like nobody has been executed and things have been so prosperous, we we eliminate a lot of things, which is human factors from it.
Yeah.
So let I'm gonna go into a little bit on this fact is, I mean, I we have talked about it. We have seen in the history over and over again that if you do not do the due process, um, you, it's the way authoritarian governments work, and there are a lot of people suffer. So, what do you think motivates people to move into that extreme direction? Like, I get it. We can dismiss Trump, uh, that he likes to have attention, or he likes to post on social media and everything. But there is history of authoritarian governments. There is history of people advocating for such situations.
Hmm.
Um, I have heard this back in Pakistan as well, that people always say that, oh, but I have not been disappeared, so there has to be a reason that these people have been disappeared in different minorities. What do you think motivates people to start thinking something like that and then getting behind it? What's the flaw in that system that makes people so aggressive towards such situations, and they are like, oh, we really don't care about the due process?
Yeah, so I think the most critical thing in that is, and this thing has increased in the recent past, is the laziness. Like people are just not willing to, like, at least consume some content on that thing beyond the video that you have watched. Try to read about it and try to know more. There is always more to what you have seen.
Hmm.
So the unwillingness of people to do that, and in like social media's age, given the amount of polarization that there is, a lot of the people are just looking for talking points. For example, if I am a mega supporter
Hmm.
and Donald Trump has, let's say, done this thing, sent that man abroad, into a prison, I am now, like, somewhere in my social circle or on the social media, I might get challenged on my views, right?
Hmm.
Now I need my talking points in order to justify that. So for that, the easiest thing is, like, find two or three talking point and just present them as the logic to, and basically justify your point. So recently, the rise of the social media and the, given the amount of polarization, I think this thing has kept going up and up.
I think there's also another factor which feel like it's very prevalent is कि हमारे जो process of judicial processes हैं, they're very slow, and that does increase frustration in people. Now, like if we uh, go to, like the other day, I watched this documentary called No Other Land, which is Oscar best documentary
Hmm.
this year. It's Palestinian documentary, and it's about this area in Palestine, which in West Bank, जो कि लोग caves में रहते हैं, and they've been fighting for keeping their place instead of Israel building their training camps there for past 20 years
Hmm.
in their judiciary. For 20 years, they have been doing this.
Hmm.
I think when we talk about a lot of um, violence, we talk about authoritarianism, we talk a lot of these things. I get that there's something that stops you from intellectualizing and rationalizing these things, but there's also an element of frustration which kind of give a rise to these things where you don't see justice being served again and again. Like, this example of this woman who lost her daughter, if the due process would have been happened, there has been some more things have been happened, and there is this thing that's being shown to her that, okay, we don't care if that person is from anywhere. If anybody hurts your child or anybody hurts you or the community, they will be punished. And
Hmm.
things happen quickly. You don't have to stay in like courts and you're going over and over again for days and months and years to in different extent, and especially in our part of the world, हमारे यहाँ तो जमीनों जायदादों में जो मसले होते हैं वो तो जो है ना जनरेशन टू जनरेशन मूव करते रहते हैं.
Hmm.
So I feel like there is also that frustration in people that
Hmm.
kind of give rise to authoritarianism. I
Hmm.
feel like the polarization, yeah, the social media has made it more intense than it ever was. But I feel like there is definitely a frustration and that we are not seeing anything happen. Like even in Canada right now, right? Um, this crime rate has gone up since we came here, right?
Yeah.
Since 2018, we have seen it has gotten unsafe. I think day before yesterday, we saw a video of people breaking into like Costco in Brampton.
Hmm.
When we saw this video, a friend of ours commented. She said that, oh, they should have more security. But in my head, the first thing was like, oh, I didn't come this far to have like security guards everywhere and like
Hmm.
everything. But that was the first instinct I had,
Hmm.
because that is starting giving you this like fear
Hmm.
that if you're seeing security members everywhere and you're seeing this thing, but at the same time you are seeing these numbers going up, there has to be something done. But if there is not, these people are not getting punished.
Hmm.
There are extreme human rights uh, like if they're not being tried in different cases. Like we have seen last year, there was this girl who overran this old person, and she was not even charged for attempt to murder.
Hmm.
She was charged for attempting to like steal.
Hmm.
So uh, what do you think on that front? Do you think that the frustration is also one of the reasons?
Um, yes, but how much of that is there in the Abrego Garcia's case, right?
Mm,
So I think a lot of what is happening in the US is like these extreme actors acting in the way that we thought they would, but probably we had not thought that extreme
mhm.
um, when Trump got back into the government. Going back to the example that you gave, yes, but the problem is that the sane minds need to track to the origin of what causes crime. If you go to the very basic level, no one wants to steal stuff, right?
Yeah,
It's not that they enjoy it, right? They
yeah, of
have
course.
so they have some fear in the back of their mind when they do it. So that means they're not doing it out of like passion or
Yeah, of
some,
course.
they're not finding
Nobody
any
said
joy in
I'm
that.
gonna grow
So
up become a thief.
yeah, so the why is it happening is because of the why it took off since COVID and all was the inflationary pressure that people were
Hmm.
feeling. The whenever you see a downturn in employment, you're gonna see such cases. Whenever
Yeah.
inflation goes up, you're gonna see such cases. Whenever uh, economy tightens up, you're gonna see such cases. So the focus of the government, and which is the case, like in most cases, unless you're Trump, um, the focus of the government is always to release those pressures to try to counter those situations in the short term. Yeah, of course you need to have security and all to try to rectify that, but the security can do only so much if
Yeah.
the cause of all of those crimes keep building up. No amount of security can do anything, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that uh, there is like clear mismatch in the kind of situations that we have been seeing in Canada with crime and
Hmm.
what's happening in the US. Like they're like poles apart, and even when you're admitting that there was an administrative mistake
Yeah.
in in making such a big decision, you yourself are basically like there was no crime there.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
just you invented it out of thin air.
So, uh, perfect sideways. So, why is Trump so like picking fight with courts over and over again? Is he like? Is it just the authoritarian mindset, or there's like something long term?
So him being having this authoritarian nature, he wants to act the way he wants, and he wants no one stepping in his way. So that I think is what's happening. Like whoever he feels like like every now for the last 3 days we have been seeing him on Twitter and Truth Social bashing the Fed chairman. I'm going to fire you. You need to bring the
Yeah.
interest rates down. So that means in his head he has a certain picture of how economy should be driven, and whoever stands in his way, he's just gonna try to take them on. I think that is what we are seeing with the courts. That is what we are seeing when he tries to take on the Fed chair. Um, that is what we are seeing in their foreign relations as well. He has a certain picture, or you can call it an end goal. Of course, there is a lot of stupidity in his assumptions in achieving that goal, but he doesn't care. He wants to like achieve those at whatever cost, and whatever creates any hindrance along the way, his way of doing it just try to prop up people in his support and try to basically create this sense of pressure that okay, public is with me, and they want, the public is not liking the interference from the supreme courts, and that he will have people like Elon Musk and those other set of people who helped him
Hmm.
get in power also basically use their platforms and social media to try to drive like similar kind of reaction among the people. Uh, yeah. So
So,
it's basically that.
okay, I understand the public pressure and everything, but Supreme Court does not answer to public, uh, and they so is there a way for them to impose what they are their decisions? Because, well, in a democratic society, uh, in the free world, you
Hmm.
basically, there is this agreement that the institutions are going to uphold the
Hmm.
hierarchy, and there's this mutual respect, right? The
Hmm.
law, if Supreme Court says something, you follow, like, it should be followed by the government.
Yeah.
If it goes to Congress and Senate and they veto what you are saying, you follow that.
Yeah.
Seems like he's not going to do it. So what is the way for Supreme Court to impose those decisions?
Yeah. So I think they like someone who has better legal understanding might be able
Mm-hmm.
to exactly define how it's gonna go from here. It's probably gonna be like some like legal battle between the government and the Supreme Court, and similar kind of situation that we saw in
Mm-hmm.
the Pakistan, right, where government all of a sudden decided the Supreme Court has too much power, and we need to
Yes.
like maybe there might be some truth in that, but the problem is why do you want it all of a sudden now? Because you have like different motives that you want to achieve. So they like intent might come into that. um how much of truth there is
Mm-hmm.
in, like, is Supreme Court really, like, do they have the authority? I think it's gonna get settled in the court and the Congress itself. Yeah, but we will see how it pans out. But right now we can like clearly see that there is a standoff.
Okay. So let's go to another standoff, the election debates in
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
So we saw French and English debates in past week. Um, Apparently, everybody's mad at Carney for what Justin Trudeau did, um, to a point that he has to tell followers that, I am not Trudeau. you, they're his
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I frankly did not like. I tried to listen to the French one. Like there was a English voiceover running.
Yeah.
It was so hard to
Yeah.
like to basically try to understand what was being said. But I did listen to the second
English
one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I am understanding is that everybody kind of, like, from both debates, we see that everybody was attacking Carney most of the
Yeah.
time. And I think there is a fair reason. They were in the government before, they are leading the polls. Um,
For 10 years now.
for 10 years. So people want to know what Carney can offer differently. There is definitely a question that he has, at different points, have advised Trudeau on economical and financial situations of the government during COVID and towards the end of it. Um, what So we have been saying poly markets
Yeah. I
laughs.
haven't seen since the debate what has changed.
It hasn't changed much.
Hmm.
There is somebody who was pretty mad at it. Why it's not changed since the debate was a disaster? I don't think it was a disaster. Um, at, so I think there are like 10 major issues that they are fighting over. The first, of course, there is definitely the Trump tariffs. They are worried about their housing crisis, economical situations, um, crime rates, there's definitely climate change issues. So there is definitely a conversation about how they are going to be dealing with pipelines. Um, there is immigration issues. So, what do you think? Okay, it's gonna sound like a very um, debate question because they asked him the same thing. How are you gonna be different than Trudeau? How do you think Carney is different than Trudeau? Other than that, yeah, he does have a very strong financial profile, and we have seen he has this really strong resume.
Yeah.
But he has to pick a team from the same people, like right? There's a party that has to pick the team from.
Yeah, most likely, like most of those people are gonna be still around. Frankly, I do not know exactly what. I, I think one thing that he is gonna do, and he did mention in in the debate as well, and it's a requirement given the kind of pressure, economic pressure we're going to be feeling from the south, is like there are some nonsensical trade barriers within provinces in Canada. He wants to
Hmm.
get rid of that, and he wants to get rid of them fast.
Hmm.
So that is what he mentioned in the debate a couple of times. So intent, I believe there is intent to achieve that. Um, I don't know how difficult it's gonna be because you will need all the provinces to have an agreement there.
Hmm.
So a consensus will be required. Other than that, about the debate, I think one thing that I was kind of disappointed was, and a big chunk of it was related to Trump and tariffs,
Hmm. Yeah,
and like all the four participants did not have like a
a plan.
clear plan of how
Yeah,
how are you going to deal with Trump. Pierre Poilievre, like throughout the debate, wanted to paint Mark Carney as Justin Trudeau. His purpose throughout the debate was that
yeah,
um, Mark Carney tried to just lean on his role in Brexit, and his ability to deal with the crisis in the past, but no clear plans again.
yeah.
And of course, NDP and the Quebec bloc, like how like they have little dictation over how the national policy will be run. So there was a bit of disappointment there. One point though I liked, it was raised by the NDP leader,
Hmm.
was and it makes sense. I like there might be some technicalities that I am missing there, but he wanted to, like he basically said that instead of us driving and building pipelines from west to east and throughout Canada, we should actually build a grid that runs from east coast to west coast. So that
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. I think it can be helpful to build more renewable resources.
Hmm.
So I like that component of the energy policy there, and Mark Carney kind of endorsed that.
Hmm.
So if such thing happens, there might be some technical
Hmm.
difficulties. I don't know how, like what the cost of it is gonna be, but I have like always thought about it. Even in the context of US, I think
Yeah,
it makes so much sense to have, since they are like such big countries, like having a grid system that connect you're from eastern coast to the western
the
coast,
Western
gives you
Coast.
like so much land that you can build the renewable resources on and be able to deal with the intermittency problem that we once discussed
Yeah.
in the renewable resources. Yeah, so those were like some of the high points, but of course there were then discussions on the crime rate as well, how we are going to deal with that. I think the crime rate will address itself as
The economical situation gets
yeah,
better.
economic situation gets better. But of course, in the interim, like I said before, you have to provide people with security and everything. And I think that's what everyone was
Talking about,
committing.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So one thing was very interesting when I was listening to when they were asked them that what is the biggest risk for the next government.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
was surprised.
yeah, it was very interesting answers. I think for me, what was interesting was the answer. One of the answers was China.
Yeah. And he went like out of the way to say that. Actually, he kind of missed that question. So he might actually have let it go, but he intentionally said that, oh, you asked about the security threat to the biggest security challenge to Canada. I think that is China. I i don't exactly understand what's the intent there. Maybe Mark Carney is there trying to kind of please Donald Trump. Otherwise
That's
it
what,
didn't
yeah,
make
that was
sense.
what, yeah, because that's what the first came to me as well. Because okay, everything else aside, we have tariffs, we have very bad economical situation, we have very bad security situation in two major cities on East Coast and West Coast. The
Yeah.
coast, we are having one of the biggest housing crises. Him going out of his way and saying China was very interesting for me. I was like, for a minute, I was like, do you want
Yeah.
Trump to hear this? Because there's literally no other justification. Because I know that we have been having rough patch with China for like last 2 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Um, Security threat. Hmm, interesting. Because from the last uh, like there has been a conversation, or was he just trying to clear his name? Because there is definitely a conversation going around that there are Chinese parties. There's a conversation with him and Chinese on the back door happening, and it was happening. uh,
I'm not sure, but frankly, Canada and China uh, haven't been great partners for at least for the last like 6 7 years. The
yeah.
whole situation with the Huawei CFO happened.
Hmm.
Then we saw that exchange where kind of Xi Jinping was visibly scolding, you can say, Justin
Yeah.
Trudeau, and then they executed a bunch of Canadians in China. So a lot has happened. People sometimes like just forget, like if there is if so much has happened in the last 5 to 6 years, it's not easy to just normalize things. A lot of the
Hmm.
people are expecting that, okay, US has done this and this, they have like changed the rules of the game, so maybe we should go to the China camp. It's not that simple, and I
Also, not everybody is as crazy as Trump that they change policy overnight, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So so Mark Carney has not openly admitted it. He's in the other camp. He says that this is how words gonna be from here on.
Hmm.
But I think, like behind the curtains, I think there is a realization on his part as well that maybe it's just like one tenure. Once Trump is gone, things are gonna go back to where they were. But yeah, because Pierre Poilievre had just answered this question, I would say brilliantly. Just paint the local issues that you have as the biggest challenges to Canada. He did that, and right after that, he just recalled that question and said that China is the biggest threat. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was definitely an interesting part. I think there is also, I think it happened in French debate where NDP leader actually asked Carney to use the word genocide for what's happening in Gaza, and
Mhm.
he said that he would not use that word to politicize what the situation is, and like the NDP leader was pretty mad about it.
Yeah, yeah, just trying to basically trying to diplomatically sidestep that, not
Yeah.
address it at all. Yeah.
So how? Okay, we know that um, Carney is leading the polls. The elections are almost here. Um, what is your reading of a peer? Because we know they both are like he has been up. He was leading the polls. I think the removal of carbon tax and Carney's announcement that he's going to be running really flipped the switch for Pierre.
Hmm.
How did you feel? Like, other than him is still thinking that, you know, how you tell somebody that they're gonna go in competition with someone, like, you know, you have an exam for English and then suddenly it changes for Urdu, and then you go and
Hmm.
you just
Hmm.
keep writing in English because you it felt like from the debate it did feel that way
Yeah.
a lot. uh, do you think he has given up and that's why it's happening that way?
So if the polls are correct, then I think like he's just having this last attempt. So he's basically realizing that okay, I was doing really good
Hmm.
few months ago. All of a sudden, things are this bad. What changed? And what changed was that he was up against Justin Trudeau. So
Yeah.
his last attempt has been to just try to tell the people that it's not an election where you're deciding between me and Mark Carney. You're deciding between me and Trudeau's policy, which Mark Carney was a part of. So
Hmm.
he has just been kind of just doing these last attempts. Just just go through the debate and
Yeah.
see the number of times he does that. So he's just hammering this thing over and over to try to have some impact. We don't know what impact it might have. I guess we'll find out. We're just like 10 days away.
Yeah. I feel like if I would like to rationally see the situation. What I would do is I would still keep my talking points, but I would somehow bring in the examples where Carney, you could actually bring Carney into an example that, oh, this thing that he's saying, he hasn't done that, or this thing that he has said didn't work out for the terms that he's talking about. But I guess there has been strong examples of his financial advices working, so I think it's been hard for Pierre to actually focus
He
on
did
them.
raise some points, to be fair. There was some reference to C-69
Mhm.
agreement through which they hand over the gas business to the US
Yeah.
companies. So, but again, he is raising some legitimate points, but it looks like that they're not sticking. So,
Hmm.
from that, you can tell that maybe a lot of the people have already made up their mind.
Okay, so it seems like a lot of people have checked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's touch very briefly on what OpenAI has done in last couple of days. They have released two of their new models, and that combined what we were hoping for it to combine, which is visual aids with text and being able to think on those. And I think that that sounds very interesting because I remember there was an episode in Big Bang Theory where they would make an app which would like they would scan the mathematical equations and that
Mm-hmm.
the app would be able to solve it. And when we were going through it, a friend of mine then few years later she made it in the like one of her CS projects. This was, you know, document analysis.
Mm-hmm.
um how are you looking at this new development, and what are your thoughts?
So the first thing is that they need to like correct their versioning.
Yes.
Their versioning of the models is all over the place.
All over the place, yes.
There was like GPT 3.5, there was GPT 4, then 4.5, then they went to O1, then O3, then
Three.
O3 mini, and now they released like O3, and then there is O4 high and O4 mini, and for some
Yes.
reason O4 is doing worse than O3.
Three, yeah.
The versioning says that maybe it should not happen. So there is like a lot of confusion, and they admit that. So I think a lot of what this is happening is, since we like I've been a developer myself, I think what's happening is like these projects get kick started within the development team,
Yeah.
and they're assigned these versions and they just stick.
Yeah.
They just stick because they like from the inception of the project to the release of the thing, you have had enough internal meetings calling and calling that thing O3 and O4 over and over, that once you're done, you're just like, okay, yeah, whatever,
Yeah, I'm done.
it's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So that bit, but like the models themselves are pretty impressive. The biggest challenge that it has become lately is like whenever these models come out, it has become so difficult to isolate hype from the reality.
Yes.
Like they like every and I find this problem with like most things. Whenever something happens, when you go into kind of basically among the developers
Mm-hmm.
and trying to gauge, okay, what are people thinking, like there are like wild swings in what people there
Yeah.
is a camp who is just hyping it, and then there is a camp, oh, it's nothing, it's just useless. So then you have to do do the effort yourself.
Produce yourself. Yeah.
You have to use the model. I have done some examples. They're like pretty impressive. The way so multi-model has been the theme, where it can take input in several different forms, and it
Mm.
is able to use like all the capabilities that it has. That means like it can understand the video, it can understand images, it can
Mm-hmm.
understand text. It has the ability to, like, if there is an image, it can go to several different zoom levels trying to find maximum detail out of the image, which was
Mm-hmm.
impressive. um, so all in all, so I was mostly testing O3, since that has been
Mm-hmm.
the greatest, grandest model.
Mm-hmm.
O4 is more for like speed purposes, to get
Yeah.
like quick responses. So yeah, I'm still trying it, but super, like, way better than their previous models, like massive improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that was impressive was that they released the Codex AI,
Mm-hmm.
Codex CLI. Why would I
Yeah.
say? Yeah. um, which is basically a kind of AI programmer. And the
Mm-hmm.
examples that they showed were like pretty impressive, where they just launched it and fed it like a single screenshot of an app, and it was
Mm-hmm.
able to like generate the full app. It's on YouTube. Like
Mm-hmm.
whoever is like interested in development, or do develop software development for a living, they should check it out. It's really impressive.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tosif, for the update on it. And um, that's it from our side. Hopefully, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.